Hello and welcome back to the Johnny Gets Cash YouTube channel. This is my Daihatsu Fourtrak that I've been restoring for a little while now. Now this was probably the rustiest example in existence, I think, but I've worked very hard to make it look a little bit like something. I won't say look good because we're not there yet. It's been a little while this episode. A lot of stuff's been going on, as covered in my last video if you saw that, but never mind. In the last video of this Fourtrak, you will have seen me mounting the front and rear bumpers and making them a little bit higher to match the 1.5" lift kit that I fitted to this truck. I did say in that video the bumpers still need body working and need to be made to look good, so I can spray those and make it look nice and fresh, just like the bodywork. Now, on that note, you'll notice this thing is covered in dust and grime. That is because it's been tucked away at the back of the workshop while I've been getting on with other stuff. But as I mentioned just now, I'm going to be cracking on and getting this thing pushed a little bit further down the line. So what am I going to be doing in today's episode? Well, the front bumper needs bodywork and paint. Both rear bumper sections need bodywork and paint, but more importantly, and a much bigger job, is the body kit. So those fat overarches you get on a Fourtrak. Now, I have got the body kit, but I mentioned before in a previous video, it's in a really bad state. So all the plastic overarches have had some sort of nudging, scratching damage to them. But in worse cases, like on some of the rears, they've been broken in the past and plastic welded back together, but not very well. So what I want to do is repair them all properly, make the repairs invisible, and then I'm going to spray them to match the front and rear bumpers. So it'll all be the same shade of silver, and I'll touch on the color code of the bumpers later in the video, because as I found out, the color code is actually quite hard to find. I'm also going to be working on the face of the truck, the front grille. That's going to be sprayed to match the bumpers and the overarch kit. So one way or another, in this video, we're going to be finishing the outside of the Fourtrak, with the exception of the wheels. That's a later video, but the bodywork will be completely finished at that stage. And then the next stage for me will be to crack on with the interior. Now that is a big job, but that's going to be another video. For today, let's just focus on this body kit, make it look good, make it sound, and get it fitted back to this Fourtrak. So here is what I'm working with. This is the entirety of the Fourtrak body kit. What we've got are 4 fat overarches, 4 bumper corners, and of course the face of the Fourtrak, the front grille. Now, as I mentioned briefly in that last clip, everything here is going to be getting sorted out and painted in the same shade of silver. But I want to talk you through the job I've got ahead of me. Now, to start with, let's look at these bumper corners. These are all sort of a flexible ABS plastic, so they can take a bit more of a beating than this body kit, but they've all had a life. They're all scuffed and damaged. Let me show you one of the front bumper corners that really demonstrates what I'm talking about. They've had a life. They've been bashed against gate posts and other vehicles and tow bars and all sorts by the look of it. Now, there's nothing too horrendously wrong with any of them, but they are all scuffed and damaged. The biggest sin these things have committed are there should be some lugs that connect them to the metal bumpers. Now, they seize, and when you grind them off, which you inevitably have to do on every Fourtrak restoration, it kind of melts a hole where the metal gets so hot with that square shank bolt, it melts a hole in the bumper. So I'm going to have to fix the hole first of all, and then find a smarter way to mount these. But aside from that, it's really just surface prep and respraying on the bumper corners. The other element is the overarch kit. Now, this is what makes a Fourtrak, that wide arch look. Really cool, and one of the things that originally attracted me to Fourtraks many years ago. A lot of these are scuffed just like the bumper corners, but the main issue, let me show you this one because it's a good example. It's a much more brittle type of plastic. Now, as you can see here, this one is splitting open because when they get knocked, they crack and they break. Now, in the case of my particular Fourtrak, it's had a life, and someone has tried to plastic weld these cracks back together. Now, when I say plastic weld, I kind of mean that loosely. They've got a hot screwdriver and just sort of melted the back side of the plastic together where it's cracked. Now, that may well have held for a month, or may well have held for 5 minutes. I'm not really sure. It's not the proper way to do it, really. If you're a long-time viewer of this channel, you'll have seen me do plastic welding on other bumpers in the past, and that is basically what I'm going to be doing to this body kit. I'm going to be properly plastic welding these cracks to make them as sound as possible before tackling the surface of the part to make sure that crack is completely invisible. Now, with any luck, that means not only will this body kit look good again, it'll actually be sound and free from any weird shapes and wavy bits. Now, I will be respraying all of this. You'll know that the car is finished in that Riviera special colour, that sort of teal metallic. I'm going to be keeping the body kit in this gunmetal grey silver colour. Reason being, that is true to the Fourtrak's Japanese roots, two-tone bodywork. Some people do choose to respray their kits in the same colour as the car. I'm not going to be doing that because I want it to look pretty much standard with a few little tweaks, as I've said many times in this series. So this is going to be going back to gunmetal silver. Mentioned briefly in the intro, the colour code for this kit is lost to the sands of time seemingly. No one seems to know. But I've been out and had this paint colour matched, and I found that there is another manufacturer colour code which is very, very, very close indeed to the colour of these gunmetal silver bumpers. So I'm going to be spraying them in that shade, and I'll tell you what that shade is a little bit later in the video. But for now at least, I'm going to crack on and get on with this pretty big task of making this kit sound and looking good, ready for paint. So I'm going to time lapse quite a lot of this, but I'll stop every so often and let you know anything interesting that's going on. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is the worst of the cracks, which is the bit I showed you just now, and where it's just been hot screwdriver together. What I need to do is clean the surface back to a level playing field, and I'm going to use a mini sander for that. So what I've got to do is clean up the area before I can do a proper plastic weld job. So that is what I'm going to do right now. Okay, with all those old staple welds, whatever you want to call them, I call them hot screwdriver welds, with all that flushed back, I can then get ready now to use some proper heated staples to stick everything back together. That's the next stage. Right, okay, now that's done, this is a proper staple plastic welding gun. What happens is you put a metal staple in the end of these two prongs, like this, and then you feed a current through until the staple glows red hot. You can see it starting to smoke. Now when it glows red hot, that means it's ready to be pushed onto the plastic and embedded in to that plastic, welding the two sides together. So you can see this is now getting nice and red hot. If I drop that on the plastic, you'll see a little puff of smoke as it goes in. Let the power off of it. Let it cool down a second before pulling the gun away. But in theory, when that plastic isn't quite as liquidy, after a few seconds you can pull that away. It won't pull the staple with it. The staple stays in the plastic, keeping everything stuck together. So that's one type of staple. The other type of staple, they come in all different shapes, sizes and designs, but the other one I need to use is one of these, which is a corner support staple, because there's a bit of a repair in the corner over here. That's the same, exactly the same situation. You just shove that into the corner and it will weld a corner together on an internal 90, if you like, as opposed to a straight stitch. So that's a lot of talking to cover a pretty basic subject. I'm going to go on and do the rest of the cracks, beefing it all up with these staples, then I'll trim the staple legs back and take you on to the next stage. So basically what I've done now is plastic weld the back of all the damage on this overarch. In addition to that, I've done some fiberglass work. This red stuff is glass matting with resin impregnated into it. Now, I didn't film that because I realised I've done quite an in-depth cover of this on another one of my videos where I fixed a bumper before with plastic welding and fiberglass on the back side of it. So if you're interested in seeing more about the process and how everything works here, I'll put a link at the top of this video and you can check it out right now. But that's what I've done to this. What I need to do now is make the front edge of the damaged good. So where the crack used to be, you can still see it. I need to now make a little channel in there so that the body filler has got somewhere to go, so that when I do body work this and prep it, it will look completely seamless. So I'm going to crack on and do that, as well as doing all the other arches. And then I'm going to get on with the other bits of the body kit, but I'll come back to you when that's done. Okay, so it's a few days later. I've got all the Fourtrak body panels ready to go. All the bodywork's been done, all the fixes. The high build is on. Everything is ready to receive paint. Now, I said at the beginning of this episode, I'd be explaining about the colour I'm going to be spraying these bits and pieces. So that's the arches, the bumpers, and the grille. They're all going to go the same colour. Now, on a Fourtrak Riviera, such as the one I'm restoring here, you have the body colour and you have sort of a silver overarch and bumper design. The silver itself is, it seems to me at least, impossible to get the proper colour code for that silver. So what I've done, I've been to my local paint shop and had them colour match it. So they basically clean the panel up. Obviously it's before I knocked all the paint off them, but they clean the panel up, they scan it, and they figure out what the code should be. Now, I couldn't get the exact Daihatsu paint, but there is a code for another manufacturer that basically is exactly the same. And so if you're restoring a Fourtrak and you want to know what color code that is, it is Proton Metropolitan Grey. Now that's basically exactly the same as the original shade these would have been. One of those silly things, I could have sprayed them any shade of silver, to be honest, no one would really know the difference, but for me at least I wanted it to be true to the original. So whereas I couldn't get the original Daihatsu paint, Proton Metropolitan Grey as a code will be exactly what these things should look like. So all that being said and explained, I don't want to keep waffling about it, so I'm going to set myself up, I'm going to lay down some colour on these panels, and then we're going to get a clear coat on them and eventually flat them so they're nice and shiny, and then bolt them back to the car. But again, I'm going to show you bits and pieces as I do the job rather than from start to finish, because you've seen me do it a million times. Let's just get it done and get this episode finished. Okay, so it's a little while later on and we're in quite a mess in the workshop, but let me show you where I am with everything. As you can see, we've got various bits and pieces that have just been painted here on the table. I have refitted the rear bumpers and arches. I'll insert some quick time-lapse footage of me doing that. Not a lot of footage of it because it was a bit fiddly, because what I've had to do is, where I've refabricated all of the rear tubs, the original fixings for these overarches have been deleted, but that's okay because I always plan to upgrade these to riv nuts with stainless bolts anyway. Again, I'll insert a short clip of me drilling and putting riv nuts in to fix the overarches, but I just want to show you the condition of everything because it's easy to forget how much has gone into this Fourtrak, as it's been quite a long project. But rear overarches fitted, rear bumper sections now fitted. Now I didn't film this, but if you look at the top of these bumper sections, what I've actually done, it looks like a two-tone. So you've got the standard silver colour that I described earlier in the video. This is a bedliner style paint because these are essentially steps as well as bumpers, steps to get in the back of the truck. They're from the factory, they're just normal paint, but I like the idea of having these extra grippy, plus I think it looks pretty smart in two-tone. So I've done that as well. No footage of that because I just cracked on and did it, but show the other side. Again, we've got the nice freshly painted overarch, a few fingerprints on it from where I've been fitting it, but they'll all be getting a proper detail soon. But all nice brand new stainless fixings all the way through into riv nuts, which are into the freshly fabricated part of the body. Now, that's the rear end of the truck. I'm currently working at the front. Quite a lot to do again. So it's been a long time since this Fourtrak has had its bodywork on, so that's all the wings and the overarches, etc. The reason these aren't on right now is once again because I've been upgrading everything to riv nuts, all fresh nylon receivers as well. But I'm about to fit the inner splash guards, which will cover up all this lovely fresh paint, and again, it's easy to forget it's been done. So you'll see me fitting bits and pieces, but this will now be covered up. I think in the future I will take them off again and give everything a good clean, because while it's been in the workshop it is a bit dusty. But for right now and for this video, I said I was going to fit the body kit, and that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to overlook a bit of the dust and the grossness of this, and I'm going to fit those bits and pieces, but just want to show you where we are really. I mentioned earlier, these are the bits and pieces yet to be fitted, and what's going on this table, we've got new gasketing going on. So from factory, the gasketing between the body kit and the metal body of the car itself is this kind of silver grey stuff, but it gets really crispy and vulcanized, and it's just not a good look. Now you can't actually buy that anymore, so I've had to go for this stuff, which is a similar profile. It's a T profile, just in black, which I don't think is too bad. That gets bonded onto the inside face of the overarches, and then when the overarches get fitted to the vehicle, it acts as a gasket between the painted body and the painted arch, plastic arch. That's the reason for that. So I've got things being bonded, things being bolted to the vehicle. It's all happening at once. The reason the wheel is off is because I've been drilling those riv nuts in. So quite a lot to it. I'm trying to film bits and pieces in between as I go just to bring you along, but that is where we are. I'll show you the next stage as we get there. Okay, so that was a little bit of a wrestling match getting those front overarches on, but as you can see, they are both now fitted and looking great. It is fantastic to see this thing coming back together again, but I'm not going to stop there. I want to continue giving the Fourtrak its face back, including that newly painted bumper and also the freshly painted grille. So I'm going to crack on and do that now. Once that's done, I'm going to take this thing outside and give it the clean that it so desperately needs before we look around it and take stock of exactly what has happened in this episode and what is coming next. Anyway, stay tuned. Face is going back on now. Okay, so the bumper is now back on, including those new end caps. Now, I mentioned before about my new fitting system being into captive nuts. You can see here the exposed stainless heads of the bolts I've used, which go into the captives, which are part of the steel bumper. Probably not as attractive as the original dome nuts, but it's functional and I quite like it. In that respect, I like the fact that if they get damaged, I can easily take them off and fix them. And on that note, how nice is it to see a Fourtrak front bumper that's not all smashed on each corners. It's totally straight, it's all matching colours, everything is proper. To me, that is exactly what this project is about, making this look like the best example it can be. Anyway, enough waffle. I just wanted to show you the fixing system I came up with there. I really want to get this front grille back on because this thing will look like a Fourtrak for the first time in years once I've done that. Okay, this feels like kind of a big moment, putting the grille back on a car that's been apart for years. I don't want to make too much of a hash of it. Now, I've got to say, I will be taking the grille off again, so I'm not going to clean all the dust and to try to start behind it. I just really want to get this mounted and see what it looks like. But it'll be coming off again because I've got some special stainless fixings coming to replace the originals, which I'm going to have to ping back in there now, just to get it fitted. But for the purposes of this video, I really want to get this on there and feel like we've reached a milestone. Any one of you guys who's restored a vehicle yourself will know that you've got to dangle yourself a carrot sometimes, and when you're kind of putting stuff back together, putting things on like the grille that make the car look complete again is a great carrot to dangle. But there isn't anything else actually to do on this grille. It is all painted finally and it's all completely ready to go. It's just that I want to put some proper stainless fixings in is the reason that I am taking it off again. Okay, how good does that look with the matching silver grille, bumper and overarches all fitted? On that note, originally when I started this project, I had planned to fit a chrome grille like so many Fourtraks have, because at the time I thought that was a really cool look. But as this project has gone on and on, two things happened. I found it very hard to find a good chrome grille that wasn't all broken, scratched, damaged, etc. And then what I realised was a lot of the Fourtraks that have been restored or in really nice condition do already have a chrome grille. So I wanted to be a little bit different, just like all the other elements of the truck which I've covered in this series so far. So what I thought was I'd restore the original but put the exact same paint on it as the bumpers and overarches, because I think that would look like a really subtle but smart finish. And I'm absolutely pleased as punch that I've chosen to do that, because for me that looks absolutely exactly how I want it to look. Now, I haven't put the indicators back in. The side repeaters indicators go underneath the headlights on these cars. I do have those here. You'll notice they haven't even been cleaned. That's because these are damaged, and I am trying to source a new set of these at the moment because there's no point putting anything damaged back on this project. So I have got the lights, but I'm waiting for some better ones to come up so I can fit those. Anyway, we're nearly at conclusion with this episode, but I do really want to get this thing out in the sun and get it cleaned off, and we can see just how good it really does look. Right then, here she is out in the fresh air for the first time in I don't know how long. Still wet because I've just given her a blast off to get rid of that dust, but I'm so pleased that she is finally outside and the body kit is now back on and looking, in my opinion, absolutely out of this world. Of course, there's still a long way to go. I've got those nice freshly refurbished lights to put back on, but for the sake of this video, let's just admire the shape of the Fourtrak, an all-time classic in my opinion, and just look at that. In that metallic Riviera teal with those silver overarches, bumpers and grille. That is how an old school 4x4 is designed to look. Now, that brings me on to my next point. Clearly, this doesn't look quite right. It's got these non-original wheels. This is going to be having the original Daihatsu Fourtrak pepper pots refitted, but they're going to get properly refurbished in an upcoming episode, as well as getting some proper meaty rubber put on them. These wheels don't do the truck justice. It's been lifted about 1.5 inches, something like that. So it needs bigger rubber to fill those arches. At the moment, it looks very much under-wheeled. Although those wheels and tyres would have looked fine on an original Fourtrak, you can kind of get an idea of the vibe I'm going for here. It looks like a standard Fourtrak until you put it next to another one, then you'll see how much taller it is. On that note, the keen-eyed amongst you may be thinking the front looks a little bit low. You're exactly right. The front torsion bars have not been set yet. I literally just chucked it back together, put what I thought was approximately the right tension on them when I rebuilt the truck and put the body back on. Clearly, they need more adjustment to bring the front up. It's all built in. The adjustment is there ready to go. So it will be higher at the front to match the rear. But for now, I just wanted to get this episode wrapped and show you just how good this thing is looking. Okay guys, well that will bring us to the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm very pleased to have reached this stage. We've now got the Fourtrak looking like a Fourtrak again. Of course, there's a long way to go still. I mentioned briefly about the lights and the indicators and things like that still need to go back on. Of course, we've still got a full interior to do. But most importantly, for the outside at least, we've got to get those original wheels refurbished properly and get some fresh rubber fitted. And that will be happening very soon. If you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed, turn on your notifications. You will get a notification when the video goes live, and you'll be able to join me with the continuation of this journey where we carry on making this Fourtrak as good as it can possibly be, and hopefully I like to think maybe at least one of the better examples left on the road. Anyway, thank you ever so much for watching, and I will of course catch you on the next one. Cheers.